And there you have it. Our quilt top is finished and it is looking great. What a super simple project to make. What's up everybody, Zach here with Sew Yeah Quilting. In this video, it's gonna be a little bit different. I'm going to show you how to make a scrap quilt. As you can see, there's no quilt behind me because we're gonna be making this from scratch. For our materials, obviously, yours is gonna look different than mine because it's a scrap quilt, but I wanted to bring up our scrap bag. If you've seen our Destash or our Newstash shows on YouTube, then you have probably seen the infamous scrap bag. These scraps are from, obviously, all of our previous shows, and so when you get one of these, it can be a variety of fabrics. For example, as you can see, a complete variety of a whole bunch of awesome fabrics that are going to be less than a quarter yard. I decided to go with a batik scrap bag. So the exact same thing, these would have gone into a scrap bag, but I got to them first, basically. A bunch of these have been cut down already for the sake of the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pieces, I'm going to go ahead and just cut them into strips. And what I did for this, because I did a little prep work ahead of time, was I took them and I just laid them out pretty much flat. As you do this, you want to just lay them out and obviously get pieces that are going to be big enough for the size of block that you're going to be making. I want to do this as a 6.5 inch finished block, and that is simply because I have a 6.5 inch square ruler that I can use to square up all of my blocks. So you can take your ruler, slap it down, and start to cut your fabric. As you go along, take it, lay it down, give it maybe a little bit of an angle if you want. So as you can see, I went ahead and did that just for the sake of time. So I've got my pieces here, and I'm going to get some that are over my 6.5 inches that I want for my finished quilt block. So I'm just gonna grab a few different pieces. You know what? Boom. Take your pieces, obviously you gotta press them out first so that you can sew them together. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna lay them out in a way that I like. If I have these kind of wedge-shaped pieces, I'm gonna alternate them so that we have a wedge going this way, a wedge going that way, and it's gonna build a more square-ish piece. I'm going to lay them down and get the edges pretty well lined up. And I'm just gonna sew them together. Simple as that, and now press them open. You can see I've got a piece that is obviously way too long. Nip that off, and if you have some decent sized pieces, hang on to those. You'll see why at the end of the video. Now I've got this. I'm gonna take my next piece. Okay, now that I have my pieces sewn together, I'm gonna take my 6.5 inch ruler, which if you don't have one of these, sewyeahquilting.com, there's your shameless plug. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna lay it down, and one thing I do want to highlight here, I don't want there to be like a little sliver of fabric on one side, so I am going to line this up. I might have actually put too many pieces together on this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to line this up. I just don't want a little tiny, strip right there. And I'm just going to cut around all four sides. Right there. Block number one is finished and ready to be sewn onto our quilt. So now you're going to have two kinds of blocks in making this quilt. One's like this. You're gonna have one more type of block, which I'm gonna show you right now. Now for the second block, it's pretty much the same thing, but what you're going to be doing is you're going to take some solid black fabric, or solid fabric of any color. You're gonna cut off a 6.5 inch by 2.5 inch strip, or use a jelly roll and just cut it down to 6.5 inch pieces. I am going to lay this down across one edge. I'm doing this perpendicular to the direction these pieces are going. So with that cut and pressed, you now have a kind of rectangular block. I'm going to take my 6.5 inch ruler, lay it down, covering up the black portion completely. And then I'm just going to cut it down back to 6.5 inches. And now you can cut smaller pieces for this and plan ahead, or you can just cut everything down to the 6.5 inches and go from there, whatever you want. If you do it this way, obviously you're going to have more scrap, which, like I said before, save these pieces, and you'll see why after we have a little bonus project. So then this is what your second type of block should look like. When I actually assemble all these together, it's going to make the blocks look like they're different sizes, which I think will give it just kind of a fun effect. For the quilt that I'm gonna make it 7 blocks wide by 10 blocks long. I'm gonna cut 24 blocks that have the black strip on them. The rest of the blocks will just be these normal ones. I'm gonna do a 2.5 inch black sashing around all 4 sides of these blocks. So let's go ahead and get those cut, and then we'll start sewing them together. Last row, left to right. Now that I've got my blocks sewn together, I'm going to start assembling my rows. I'm just laying them out to kind of get an orientation of how I want them to look. These blocks here that have the black stripe on them, some I'm going to sew in with the black on top, some I'll sew in with the black on the bottom, just to mix it up. Okay, I have got my rows sewn together at this point. You can see they're looking really great. For the next step, we are going to add on our sashing in between all of our rows. Alright, we've got our sashing sewn onto our rows. Now we can take it and sew our rows together and complete our quilt. One of the things that I like about this particular pattern is it is a scrap quilt, so you have the randomness of that, but the sashing does give it kind of some order, I guess you could say. That being said, let's sew these together and finish our quilt. Alright, you know what? I think it's looking great. I thought it would be kind of something different and fun to show you. A super easy project to do. And you know what? We've got a lot of scraps here, as you can see. I want to give you guys a little bit of bonus content before we end this video. When I was doing this quilt project, I thought, you know what? I'm going to save my scraps and make something out of them. Well, my scraps of my scraps. So I took the leftover pieces, the little ones that I had cut off, and I made this triple T tote, which I think is pretty sweet. It's a versatile way to use up the scraps of your scraps. You know what, check out the video if you want to make one of these. And so what I want to do right now is I'm going to take a bunch of these scraps that I have left over, and I want to show you how to make some usable fabric out of them in real time. So ready, set, go. Take my pieces, sew them together. As I get a bigger piece put together, I'll trim it to where I can sew that to another bigger piece, and we'll keep going from there. So as you can see, right there, little press on those seams, and now my edges don't have to be even or anything like that, because I can just grab another piece. We'll put that going this direction. The idea is that you want to make straight lines just like you would if you were quilting anything else, but if you have kind of ragged edges everywhere, it doesn't matter. I'm going to grab my ruler, snip this off right here. Here's a piece, some more scraps of scraps. So there we go, we got a nice piece of fabric here that is getting big enough to be usable for some type of project, either as a block itself or to use in something like a triple T tote or what have you. I wanted to give you a little inspiration to show you, hey, here's something you can do with all those scraps, and it's really easy, super simple. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. My name is Zach, teaching how to sew like a pro, and we'll see you next time here at Sew Yeah Quilting.